Being an ordinance, if you have not yet, please sign in. We will be starting in about a minute. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Committe on Ordinance. Today is Tuesday, June 25th, 2024, and the time is 5:32. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Chairman Espinal,
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Peterson,
Present.
Councilwoman Harris,
Present.
Councilman Vargas,
Present.
Councilor Royas.
Present.
You have 5 present, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I'll entertain a motion to take an item out of order.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilor Vargas and second by Councilor Peters. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to enter into the record Exhibit 3A and 3B.
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilor Peterson. Second by Councilman Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, item number 3, please.
Item number 3 is a petition from John J. Garahy Esquire, John J. Garahy Law LLC, 2088 Broad Street, Cranston, Rhode Island, 02905, on behalf of John Edward Quattrochi, trustee of the John Edward Quattrochi Revocable Living Trust, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessor's Plat 14, lots 193 and 194, 176 Gano Street and 38 Amy Street from R3 to R4.
Thank you. Do we have anybody presenting on this item tonight? Mr. Azar from CPC, please come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Robert Azar. I'm the Deputy Director of the Department of Planning and Development. This came in front of the City Plan Commission on April 16th, 2024. This is a petition to change the zoning of two parcels of land at the corner of Gano Street and Amy Street from R3 zoning to R4. And this is so that the property owners can construct 2 3-story 10-unit buildings. These would not be allowed in the R3, but they are allowed in the R4 zone. The City Plan Commission found that this was consistent with the comprehensive plan and that it was consistent also with the purposes of zoning, and they voted to recommend that you approve this zone change subject to the condition that a footnote be added to the map to prohibit short-term rentals on the site. So that would be something that we would advise prior to the close of the hearing that you add as a condition of approval. Once again, a footnote saying that the map, a footnote on the map saying that short-term rentals would be prohibited on the site.
Is that anywhere within the documents? Did you write that up anywhere? No. Affirmative. Thank you, Bob. Attorney Gary, you want to come up? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, John Garrahy on behalf of the applicant. This, as Bob indicated, this is a vacant parcel, has been vacant for much too long on Gano Street. Gano is a transit-oriented street which can accommodate more density, and this provides more density for the area, but not too much density. To the credit of the planning department, before we actually applied for this zone change, we had to put together exactly what we were going to propose for this land, and we have done this. The next speaker is Kevin Diamond, who is going to make a short presentation to you as to exactly what's going to go on this property, which is two very, I'd suggest, very good-looking buildings that are going to be on this property and to improve the area. This is appropriate for the area, and I would hope and suggest that you pass it as part of into the R4 zone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Attorney. So Mr. Asa has suggested a footnote saying that there will be no short rental. Will you or your client have any opposition to that?
No objection, Mr. Chairman. It was recommended at the City Plan Commission. We had no objection there. We have no objection to that being amended to be included within the proposal.
Thank you. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion to enter a footnote of a no short-term rental.
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilor Peterson and second by Councilor Vargas. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Attorney Garrahy.
And thank you for the courtesy.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much. Councilman Goncalves, would you like to speak on this, Councilman? Since this is your ward.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard from some residents, particularly abutters here, that would like to have an opportunity to know more about the plans. So I respectfully ask that the committee continue this matter to provide the property owner with an opportunity to sit down with the butters and neighbors so they can hear more about the plans. I think this will allow for some constructive dialogue about what they intend to do here so we can address this collaboratively. So I ask that the commission or the committee today respectfully continue this matter so that there's some transparent communication and community involvement in the decisions moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. City Sergeant, can you please bring up any ones that has signed up to speak on item number 3?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just a word of advice on continuance. If you are inclined to continue this matter, ideally it would be best if you could continue it to a date certain. Otherwise, this would require re-advertisement, which is 3 notices in the Providence Journal once a week for 3 weeks in advance of the hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that I agree with the continuance to a date certain.
Well, we can also close the public hearing where we don't have to continue to a certain date, but delay the vote on this, which will allow time for engagement, which is also an option.
I would agree to that. I think having members of the community be able to weigh in on this would be critical.
Okay, the first person that signed up to speak is Paulo Vieira.
Hi, Paulo.
Good evening.
Good evening. Paulo Vieira from 34 Amy Street and abutted to this. First of all, I've lived in the neighborhood since a small child, and that lot has always been vacant with one small exception, that there was a very small house on the very corner of it. The reason being is because there's a tunnel, a train tunnel that runs underneath it. That train tunnel can be seen, that rusty bridge is part of that. We can see on the river. It's directly on the other side of Gano Street, the entrance to the tunnel, which has been sealed by fire department. I think there was some issues way in the past. However, my backyard and many of my neighbors were not allowed to build on the back for that very same reason, that it cannot sustain the weight. As you get further closer towards, let's say, the next street, which would be Ives or even Governor, as you get deeper in, obviously there's more distance between the top of the tunnel and the surface. Now people have garages, now people have buildings. But that lot, if I had to estimate, it's definitely under 100 feet, probably more like 20 to 50 feet, and you're gonna hit the top of that tunnel. I am sure that if there's a cave-in, it's gonna hit major news, where Gano Street's gonna cave in and people's backyards are gonna cave in. Not something I think Providence wants to promote. So that's my concern. Not the concern that the owner wants to make use of his property. I can understand that. It's just that, in my opinion, and obviously many inspectors and engineers of the day, they felt that that was not suitable to have a building or any heavy structure. That's my point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'll do that after this. Elizabeth?
Good evening, Mr. Councilman and members of the council.
Good evening.
I'm also from 34 Amy Street.
Can we get your name and last name?
Elizabeth Terrialt.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm also from 34 Amy Street. I don't live there, but my parents own the property, and I'm a trustee to the property. And we're opposing this construction because, for the reasons that my brother that spoke,
Okay.
mentioned, but in addition to that, that side has never been an area that you could, it's never been a commercial area, that side of the road. My concern is that it's going to increase traffic. You have a 93 unit development that's going up on Gano Street. Now you add this to it, the traffic is going to be horrendous. It's also blocking the view of the water, which really is going to decrease our property values. So in speaking to the neighbors and the surrounding area, we spoke to them yesterday and they're all opposed to it. Some of them had health issues and weren't able to be here, but they asked for us to speak on their behalf and said that they were all opposed to this development. So I hope that you consider that. You consider the fear that it's structurally not going to be able to hold the building. And then the second is really the traffic, the increased traffic that it's going to cause on Gano Street. And thirdly, really, it's going to decrease our property values because now it's going to obstruct the water view as well. So that's a major concern for all of us.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I have Kevin Diamond next. Kevin Diamond.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kevin Diamond.
Good evening.
Yes. Can I begin, or do I have to swear in? Okay.
No.
Okay, great. I put my name down. I'm the architect of the project. I just wanted to introduce the project and explain that I'm obviously in favor of this project. I think it's been a robust design process to arrive at this design, and rather than doing a large building on this empty property, we wanted to be consistent with the size, mass, and scale of the adjacent buildings. And instead of bring something that is one unit in terms of volume, we broke it into two with a clear space in between for outdoor space. Thank you. And in terms of the architectural style, our goal was to continue sort of the architectural tradition of the neighborhood by having mansard style architecture, 3 stories, 10 units per building, parking in the rear, and a common gathering space in the middle. I'd love to share my drawings with you. Can I hand them to you? Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Nope, they're stapled individually. And I printed the exact number of copies. There you are. So 8 stapled copies, and I'll keep this short and sweet. Like I said, the proposal is very simple. The goal here was to create 2 separate structures that read very much like the buildings around them that are a continuation of the existing size, mass, and scale. We wanted to introduce a structure that didn't feel like it was too overwhelming for the street scale, or introduce a style that wasn't consistent to what's already there. We wanted to extend sort of the character of what's happening definitely along Amy Street in that residential corridor. Mansard style architecture, gridded windows, corbelled brackets at the eaves, just keeping it an approachable looking building. So that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, Kevin, could you speak a little bit about, in regards to the concerns that the residents have of that being land that could possibly sink, is what Mr. Paolo said.
So in terms of the tunnel below it?
Right.
So not being a structural or a geotechnical engineer, I'll try to stay in the bounds of my professional expertise, but I can tell you that many buildings in Providence are built atop this tunnel. I can assure you that before a foundation is actually designed, we're going to be consulting the required professionals to ensure that the footings are actually secure and they are not going to conflict with the structure below it. And it was actually very much a consideration in the schematic design process to avoid using things like basements and deep foundations. So certainly on our radar, we'd be remiss not to be thinking of those things. But inherently, we are very early in the design process. So when we get to that point in the design, we'll certainly consult the rest of the design team to weigh in on those items. In terms of the comments and concerns on traffic, no one likes traffic. I can certainly understand that as a concern. I think that we've balanced the proposal very well by proposing parking in the rear in a way where there's definitely a lot more parking than many of the new developments going up, given the size and scale of this density. But we've done so in a way to really conceal it from the street. So you're not looking at a parking lot when you're walking by as a pedestrian. I think there's a real benefit to that, to have the parking screened. So you preserve the pedestrian experience of having a building really kind of meet the sidewalk and define the urban edge, but you still accommodate parking in the rear. So I find this to be a pretty balanced approach that doesn't max out impervious surface either.
Thank you. Any question from committee members? Councilor Harris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did not catch how many bedrooms how many bedrooms will this apartment?
So 10 units per building, so a total of 20.
So they're just one bedroom for each unit?
I don't have the latest plan in front of me. There is a range of unit sizes.
Okay.
So we're definitely not creating very large units, but we're not creating an entire complex of micro units either. Again, trying to come up with a fairly balanced way to bring more housing to the neighborhood.
Okay. So, all right, and I see they are studio apartments?
What's that?
Are they studio apartments?
There are studios in the building, correct, yes.
But they're not all?
They're not all, correct.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilwoman Peterson?
Thank you. Director Azar, would you be able to answer if this situation with the tunnel underneath came up during City Planning Commission, or the meeting with the Planning Commission?
I honestly, I believe that the tunnel does exist below this parcel. And I know that there are structures that are built above the path of this tunnel. There used to be some sort of structure on this property, but I can't speak to whether it's possible to build a structure on top of the tunnel. I mean, I know that Gano Street certainly is built on top of the tunnel, and it withstands heavy vehicles and such on a daily basis. That's more of a dynamic load than the static load of a building. But without question, any development on this site would have to be properly engineered, and those plans would have to be reviewed and approved by our Department of Inspection and Standards. I would expect that any plans would have to, for a foundation on top of the tunnel, would have to be stamped by a professional civil engineer.
Thank you. Can I ask one last question?
Sure, go ahead.
Would you be able to tell me what the square footage for a micro efficiency would be, or a micro unit?
I don't have, I'm sorry, I don't have the plans right in front of me. I didn't memorize those figures. Thank you so much.
Is it less than 400, less than 300 square feet?
Less than 400, correct.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Vargas?
Thank you very much, Chair. The question is for Mr. Azar. Is this tunnel active? Do we know anything about the tunnel?
No.
The tunnel is not active. It's been closed for some time. There was some discussion several years ago about the state maybe trying to use it for something, but for the time being, it's not active, and it's closed off at both ends.
Who's responsible for?
I believe the state of Rhode Island.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening.
And I'll entertain a motion to enter into the record Exhibit 3C,
So moved.
which should be this presented. Motion is made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilor Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, so being that no one else has signed up to speak, but I see Councilman Goncalves has some additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you heard from some of my constituents today. There are concerns about the tunnel. I think it would be great to dig into that with the Department of Inspections and Standards. I also have a constituent who lives nearby, who's in a butter, who is on a ventilator. I want to be very cautious about just their quality of life and health concerns here. So I do think it would behoove us to respectfully continue this, so we have an opportunity to sit down with some of the abutters, some of the neighboring stakeholders, so they have a sense of what the plans are, and we can have some constructive dialogue on these plans moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this item.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilman Vargas. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And I'll entertain a motion to continue the vote on this for a later date.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
is made by Councilwoman Peterson and second by Councilor Royas. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. This item is continued to a later date. Thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to, Madam Clerk, next item, please. Which would be item, well, I'll entertain a motion to take item number 4 out of order.
So moved.
Motion is
Second.
made by Councilman Vargas, second by Councilor Peterson. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, item number 4, please.
Item number 4 is a petition from Tom A. Colonia, 1400 Rocky Ridge Drive, Suite 150, Roseville, California, 95661, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessor's Plat 65, Lot 152, 52 River Avenue from M1 to M-MU.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to enter into the record Exhibit 4A.
Second? I'm sorry.
So,
Second.
Motion is made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilman Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Azar, please, on item number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is a petition to change from one classification of industrial zone to another. In fact, this parcel not too long ago had the designation of MMU, but there was a previous owner who came before you to request that it be changed so that they could engage in a certain type of industrial use. Apparently that proposal never came to fruition, and now there's a different proposal for this for it to be used as a boxing gym, and that is not permitted in the M1 zone, but it is permitted in the MMU zone. This is an area that the comprehensive plan designates for industrial and mixed use, so both M1 and MMU are possible within the confines of the comprehensive plan. The City Plan Commission reviewed this and found it to be consistent with the plan and the purposes of zoning, and they issued a recommendation that you approve this zoning change.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. So this is just basically asking to go back to its original zoning.
Yeah, about 3 or 4 years ago was when this was changed.
Thank you. Do we have anybody presented on this?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and
Good evening.
members of the council. Attorney Joseph Brennan on behalf of the applicant. First, thank you to Mr. Azar for a very good summation. And then his staff is always fantastic to work through with this process. And thank you to the council for hearing us today. As stated, the applicant's looking to convert the property. Right now, it's an abandoned cash check business that has no use, and the applicant's looking to come in and transform it and use it as a boxing gym. As such, with doing our due diligence, we found that we need to change the zone. I'll keep it pretty simple. If you were to look at a map, the properties to the right of us are MMU 75. The properties to the left of us are MMU 75. There's a small block directly across the street that's in the M1, but everywhere else surrounding us is the MMU 75. So we graciously ask this subcommittee and the council to give us a positive recommendation and vote to change the zone back to the MMU 75. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question from committee members? Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
City Sergeant, do we have anybody that signed up to speak on item number 4, please? Number 4. Okay, we have Brian Fielding.
Good evening, Chairman.
Good evening.
Good evening, council people, members. So a little bit of confusion on my end. I was under the impression that this was about a cannabis dispensary popping up in my neighborhood on River Ave. and I am learning that it is actually going to be a boxing gym. Nothing about cannabis dispensary.
Mr. Azar, please.
Yeah, so two things about cannabis. One is that there is a cannabis ordinance on this docket. It's a different item that's not relating to a particular location. But what might have caused some confusion is that when the zoning change was granted last time around, it was specifically so that the property owner could use the facility for growing cannabis. If this zoning is changed to MMU, that would prohibit cannabis operations on this. So this is, the zoning change is to allow for a boxing gym at this location.
Okay, great. I support the boxing gym.
Does that make things better for you?
It makes things much better. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for coming by. Yeah, I think it's Mount Davids. Okay, coming up.
I think it'll be quick. Can you clarify that again? Oh, good evening. Sorry, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I just want to make it quick for you all. That if the zoning is changed, then a cannabis dispensary is not possible at that location. Okay.
Not under, if this zoning goes through, it will not be possible to do that.
Right. In the M1, it would be possible, but in the
as it stands
MMU,
today,
it
yes.
is not possible.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm good.
Well, thank you. Ingrid Carrasco.
Everyone. We were under
Good
the
evening.
impression, Ingrid Carrasco.
Hi.
We were under the impression of the miracle marijuana because that's what they said around the neighborhood. And even a person actually from the court came around saying, you have a building, which is right next to my building.
Right.
Again? And we're actually very worried if something like that came around because it's our neighborhood. I have 30 years with my properties and I brought up my kids there. It's a good neighborhood. And we have right in front a playground, which is less than 600 feet away. So I just hope whatever decisions you all become of it, let it not please be a dispensary in our neighborhood. You know?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Victoria Sarit.
Hi, that was my mom just up here. We're all here for the same thing, the same confusion.
You are.
Yeah, our concern was the whole medical marijuana dispensary and how close it is to literally 70 feet away from a playground that was literally just renovated. You know, we're trying to guard our children away from being exposed to such things and making it less than 60 feet away from a dispensary. It's kind of leading into the opposite of what we're trying to do. To keep it short, I'm 29. I grew up in that neighborhood, and I stopped going outside at 12 because of the gang rivalry, the rival families, the sex work, the drugs, and I don't want the children coming up in my same neighborhood to lose out on what I lost out on, so yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Victoria. Ramon Sarit.
Oh, that's my dad. I'm representing him too.
All right.
Sorry.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Being that no one else has signed up to speak on this item, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion is
Second.
made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilman Vargas. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And following the recommendation of the CPC, I'll entertain a motion to approve on item number 4.
So move.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilman Vargas, second by Councilor Peterson. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 4 is approved. Congratulations. I'll entertain a motion to take another item out of order, please.
So moved.
Made by Councilor Peters, second by Councilman Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, item number 5, please.
Item number 5 is a petition from Richard A. Pasha, 50 Power Road, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, 02860, on behalf of JVAC LLC, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessor's Plat 108, Lot 32, 181 Pecasset Avenue, Assessor's Plat 108, Lot 24, 187 Pecasset Avenue, Assessor's Plat 108, Lot 23, 191 Pecasset Avenue, and Assessor's Plat 108, Lot 22, 11 Lowell Avenue, from R3 to C2.
Thank you. Mr. Azar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has come in front of you previously, I believe. It was continued from
Yes, this was
a previous date.
as the attorney was not able to be here that night.
Right. So just to quickly go over the City Plan Commission recommendation here. This is, these 4 lots are contiguous and they are along Pocasset Avenue up to the corner with Lowell Avenue. They all are in the R3 residential 3-family zone, but they are along a commercial corridor, much of which is zoned C2, and the uses that are in existence on the property today are all commercial in nature. There is a restaurant with associated parking, and then there is another commercial building that has been used for sort of warehousing. And the proposal here is to rezone these so that the uses on the property will be conforming, and they will have a little bit of flexibility to be able to renovate and expand the facilities to suit their needs. So the City Plan Commission evaluated this with respect to the comprehensive plan, found that it is in an area that supports commercial and mixed use, and therefore they voted to recommend that you approve this zoning change subject to a condition that they merge the lots. That doesn't have to be part of the ordinance, but it should be something that they initiate prior to this coming in front of the full council.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. Any question for Mr. Azar? Councilor Peterson?
Thank you. It says here that one of the businesses is an auto detailing business.
Yeah, that anything related to auto repair or car wash would not be allowed. And my understanding is that if they haven't been officially cited, they've been at least notified that that's an operation that would not be able to continue even if the zoning change happens.
So, okay, so just to reiterate, the auto detailing business would no longer be able to be open and available under C2 zoning.
Yeah, that business should be closed right now. You know, the owners have been put on notice that it's certainly not allowed under R3, and it wouldn't be allowed under C2.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. City Sergeant, can I get anybody that signed up to speak on number 5, please? Item number 5. Thank you, Mr. Douglas Blumen. Douglas.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. My name is Douglas Bonanno. I'm an attorney. I'm here on behalf of attorney Richard Pasha, the petitioner who represents JAVC LLC. Mr. Pasha does regret that he had a conflict this evening and could not be here. I'm just here on his behalf to advocate and give a little bit of background on behalf of JAV LLC. The LLC is a sole member LLC owned by Ariel Melgar, who is a born and raised member of the Providence community. He owns a restaurant currently at 187 Picasa Avenue called Juliana's. He operates that restaurant with his mother. 191 Picasa Avenue was also acquired at that same time as 187 where the restaurant was put. This transaction occurred back in 2019. Recently, the LLC, having a successful restaurant in the area, and what I understand is a little bit of a declining neighborhood, being successful in growing their revenue, have acquired lot 181 Picasset Avenue and 11 Lowell. During the closing of that transaction, it was determined that those lots were designated R3. However, the LLC and the restaurant were moving to acquire those lots to basically expand their business and grow their revenue stream, specifically with having in mind perhaps establishing a catering business out of the building located on 11 Lowell in the back there. That's currently a car detail, or currently, was a car detailing operation. I know there was a question about that operation. Attorney Pasha did serve notice to terminate that lease. An agreement has been struck between the tenants of that building, who will be out of that building as of July 1st and no longer occupying that building. Attorney Pasha did do some analysis in determining what would be the best way of bringing these two newly acquired lots into conformance. He did put a petition forward, which we're here tonight to discuss. The City Planning Commission did review that petition. They did have a hearing on it, and they voted 6-0 to change the lots from R3 to C2 under the condition of making it one homogeneous lot, which I think would be really good for the neighborhood. If you look at the map, as Mr. Azar did say, across the street there's a lot of commercial businesses. I think it would be very good for the neighborhood, and I'm just here to advocate on that behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Any question from the committee members for Attorney Douglas?
Yes, I do.
Councilman Vargas.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the question will be, so you're not too familiar with this zone change on this particular area?
Not too familiar with what?
With what's going on in there?
No, so there's currently a restaurant, Juliana's Restaurant, on 187, which is operated by the LLC. 191 Picasa, which abuts that restaurant, is a parking lot. 181 was just acquired at the same time as 11 Lowell. 181 is currently a parking lot, and 11 Lowell, there's a car detailing operation, or there was. The tenants will be vacating that property, and it is JAP's LLC's hope and plan to grow the restaurant's business into potentially catering, which C2 would allow out of that building. Currently is designated R3, restricted for use of storage, and if they wanted to expand into that lot and use that piece of property to expand their business, they couldn't do that under the current zoning.
And the back of the restaurant is another small building that's attached to the big building.
So Juliana's is a restaurant that sits on 187. 11 Lowell sits behind it. And it's my understanding that the building on 11 Lowell, which was that car detailing operation, is about an arm's reach. Maybe it's probably closer than me to Mr. Azar. So, you know, it would be a really good thing for the business if they had the ability to expand and use that building, which is an arm's reach away. And the C2 change would allow that.
Can I?
Sure, go ahead.
What happens with the second floor is an apartment on the second floor too, right? On the top of the restaurant.
So is it my understanding that C2 would allow, and I'm not sure that anybody is living in the apartment, I'm pretty sure it's just the restaurant in that building, but my understanding is that C2 may allow for some type of apartment up there. Not that it's currently in use, but it may allow for that. But it's not being used as an apartment.
The question will be, Mr. Azar, so that will be called a mixed-use property, Mr. Azar, or it's going to be like strictly commercial too?
The C2 zone is a mixed-use zone. It allows for commercial as well as residential. So if the owners are so inclined, they could put apartments on the second floor of that restaurant building.
It would be my guess they may have a little difficulty renting out any apartments above a busy restaurant, but they may have the ability to do that under C2.
I will thank you, Mr. Bonanno.
Thank you.
Okay, being that no one else has signed up to speak on this item, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on item number 5.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilor Arroyas, and second by Councilor Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. And following the recommendation of the CPC, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion is made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilor Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? Item number 5 is approved. Madam Clerk, back. So let's do item number 1, please.
Item number 1 is an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled The City of Providence Zoning Ordinance approved November 24, 2014 as amended by further amending Table 12-1, Sections 1202, 1204, and 1402.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to enter into the record Exhibit 1A.
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilor Peters, second by Councilor Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Azar on item number 1, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Yes, good evening again.
This ordinance actually came out of the council office, and what this is intended to do is to bring Providence's ordinance into conformance with revisions to state law with respect to cannabis. The law allows for a certain number of retail licenses that can be granted in different zones within the state. Providence is within a zone that includes several other adjacent towns, and I believe that there can be up to 4 licenses for retail cannabis that could be granted within that zone. So best case, worst case scenario, depending on your perspective, Providence could get up to 4 retail establishments, and this ordinance would describe the conditions under which it would be allowed in Providence. There are 2 new categories that would be added to the zoning table: cannabis retailer and social equity / workers cooperative licensed cannabis retailer. Those are 2 different types of licenses, but the 4 possible licenses could be either of those 2 types. And the ordinance describes where they would be allowed, and then it it changes our existing definition of compassion center and cultivation center to hybrid cannabis retailer slash cannabis cultivator. So it amends the principal use standards, and it has definitions consistent with the state law for all of the different uses. And so, you know, I'd like to credit council staff for doing a really good job of incorporating this into our zoning ordinance. This was brought before the City Plan Commission. They had a couple of recommendations. One is that the way the ordinance is written today, it mandates a separation distance from schools of 500 feet. The commission recommended that the council should consider increasing that distance to 1,000 feet. The commission also suggested the possibility that these uses could be allowed by special use permit rather than by right. And then finally, at the request of the commission's legal counsel, they asked that the law department take a look at this just to clarify some of the citations and the way they are notated in the ordinance. The legal counsel from the law department made a few suggestions. And if you're so inclined, you could accept these as an amendment. On page 2, under the paragraph KK, and then subparagraph 3, and then subparagraph B, that the reference there be changed. I'm gonna give you a couple more. Also under the definition of cannabis retailer, under the definition of hybrid cannabis retailer, and the definition of social equity / workers cooperative licensed cannabis retailer, that those references to state law be changed to read pursuant to chapter 28.11 of title 21 of the general laws. So that's it. It's just a different way of phrasing those citations that was recommended by the council, by legal counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. Any question for Mr. Azar? Councilor Peterson?
Thanks, Director. Just a quick question. Is there any knowledge of what other cities and towns are doing with regards to how with regards to the recommendation that was made by the CPC to extend from 500 to 1,000 feet? Is it consistently 500 feet, or is it 1,000 feet, or is there more? Do you know by chance?
Good question. I honestly don't know. The state law says that the state law is written kind of in a strange way. It doesn't speak directly to how these things can be zoned, but it says that the Cannabis Commission that issues the license can't issue a license for something that's closer than, for an establishment that's closer than 500 feet to a school unless the community allows for that distance to get smaller. It doesn't say that a community can't make that a more distant. And I've been told by the law department that they feel that it would be defensible if the council wanted to extend that distance beyond the 500 feet. But to your question, I honestly don't know what other communities are doing.
Any other question? Councilor Royas?
I guess it's just a thought, and I don't know if Mr. Azar wants to comment on this thought, but there's a state law currently in terms of alcohol, liquor license regulations that I believe currently in every town and city, I think there is a way to go around this, but state law currently says that it can't be within 200 feet in terms of liquor licenses for establishments of schools and faith-based institutions. So I guess I'm wondering why it's 1,000 feet is being recommended while for marijuana, for lack of better words, versus for, in terms of alcohol, we have a 200-foot base rule.
That's a fair question. I don't know if I can speak directly on behalf of the commission when it comes to that. I can't recall that there was any particular reason given for wanting to see a farther distance, other than the fact that I believe that in the ordinance currently we have that 1,000-foot standard.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. Any other committee members? Councilman Vargas?
Thank you. Mr. Azar, are we allowed to, under the current law from the state of Rhode Island, every city or town has the right to make their own rules?
Yes, every city and town has the right to make their own rules with respect to cannabis facilities. However, Providence is not allowed to have an outright ban on them because Providence was, this is the way the state law was written, because Providence was already host to a compassion center when this new law was written. The state General Assembly wrote the law in such a way that we wouldn't have the ability to opt out through a citywide referendum like some other communities had. I don't know why they did that, but that's the way the law is written. However, the law is clear that cities and towns can regulate, the manner in which these facilities operate within the city. So we do have zoning control for sure, and that's what this ordinance is attempting to do, is to say that in certain places these sorts of uses would be allowed, in other places they would not be allowed.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. City Sergeant, can you please bring up anybody that signed up to speak on item number 1, please? Right. Okay, so after hearing Mr. Azar, before we go into public comments, I'll entertain a motion to amend as was recited by Mr. Azar.
Regarding state law.
Mr. Azar, just for a point of clarification, would you like to state those amendments again, please?
Sure. So any reference to state law in on let's see, let me get the right ordinance. Any reference to state law in section KK, subparagraph 3, subparagraph B, also in the definitions of cannabis retailer, hybrid cannabis retailer, and social equity workers cooperative cannabis retailer, should make reference to chapter 28.11 of Title 21 of the General Laws of Rhode Island.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to amend as stated by Mr. Azar.
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilman Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. So now we'll open up to public comment. And our first guest will be Councilman Sanchez.
Hi, Chairman. Hi, committee members.
Good evening.
Thank you all for your due diligence and the important work that the Ordinance Committee does. Thank you, clerks, for your service. Friend over there on the camera. First, I want to start to say thank you and much gratitude to Aaron and Miguel from our policy team, Bob Azar as well from planning. We've been working on this ordinance probably for 3 to 4 months, and I know it might come off or the stigma around cannabis sometimes is a little difficult for certain folks, but what this really does is create our zoning around cannabis with whatever opinion you have on it to bring it to the modern century. When you visit cities, you see in downtown districts cannabis stores. So our current, as written, ordinance around cannabis zoning is extremely outdated. It puts retail shops, the manufacturing, the growing of it all in one. And what we're doing is separating because back in 2021, the General Assembly approved a new recreational cannabis license. So we are part of Zone 2, I believe. So it's going to be us, North Providence, Central Falls, Lincoln, and Johnston. And what we've been seeing is right now, as written, if you want to open up a cannabis retailer, which is what those new licenses are, is just retail only, it's nearly impossible to open that up in the city of Providence because previous councils maneuvering, adjusting the zoning for it to be very difficult. So the importance of why we're doing this now is that we are trying to get ahead of the Cannabis Commission. Luckily, they haven't opened up the portal for new license applications quite yet, but one of the requirements to apply is having a location identified on that application. So what is really exciting about this is in that zone, we're going to have the opportunity to have a co-op, a workers' co-op. So this is a model that gives more power and resources to the workers, and those workers obviously live and operate in our communities. And then they also include a social equity license. So I mean, personally, as honest as possible, that's what I want to see here in the city of Providence is either one of those two. And then, of course, it would also allow 2 regular cannabis operation licenses to go forward in our zone. So I know one of the concerns sometimes been is like, oh, there's going to be 100 cannabis shops opening up in the city of Providence, and that's just not true with how the state is going to issue these cannabis retail licenses. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions, concerns. We've created a model that I think is pretty fair. It limits it to the commercial districts in the M1 district. We do want to give a little bit of a more of an opportunity to the social equity and worker co-op models. So that's why we have them by permit in the C2, C3, D1, and M1. And then if you have a regular license, you would need a special permit in a C2. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, comments. Regarding the 1,000-foot recommendation, it's pretty baseless, with all due respect to the CPC. The only reason that they mentioned it is that's what we have currently, and that's kind of what is our biggest issue right now is 1,000 feet from a school really limits where we can operate in. So we want to be consistent with alcohol licenses. I believe that's 500 feet currently. Is alcohol, is that 500 feet from a school? So it's 200. So we're going a little further, about 500, and that's what the state recommended. So I mean, there's been a lot of vetting and communication up to this point. Like I said, I mean, we really just want to get ahead of the ball before the application portal opens up. You'll hear from some community members that have been organizing, especially around the worker co-op model. We would be the first worker co-op cannabis retailer in the nation. So that's important. It's important to change and redirect resources from the top to the bottom, and that's what the worker co-op and social equity licenses do. So yeah, happy to answer any questions, comments.
Thank you. Any question for our colleague Sanchez?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Vargas?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councilman, for working this ordinance. I have a concern, a question on page number 3, which says hybrid cannabis retailer cannabis or cultivator may be located within 1,000 feet, but you only mentioned public or public school. You forgot to put churches. You forgot to put charter schools. Those are your favor. And you also forgot to put daycare. So what about these 3 places? We should protect our daycares because understandable that liquor store cannot be from the school. I think it's 500 and 200 feet, but will be good to mention these 3. Is any way that we can put it into the ordinance?
Yeah, so I wouldn't have any strong objection to that, Councilman Vargas. The only practical thing is that there's not going to be any new cultivators in the city of Providence for the foreseeable future. The state has only allowed new retail licenses, so no one's going to be opening up a new growing operation in the city of Providence. But if you have strong opinion on that, I'd be open to adding daycare facilities and churches, if that's a strong opinion of the rest of the committee.
Anyone else? All right, hearing none. Thank you so much, Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you.
I have Sharon Steele. Yes. Good evening.
It is now. Chairman.
Good evening.
Council members, good evening. So, I am here representing the Jewelry District Association as its president. I'm also here representing the property owners in downtown Providence. I am speaking against this, and it's, I think, a happy accident that you had an entire row of people get up earlier this evening thinking that they were speaking against cannabis, when in fact it was the wrong agenda item. So I am here representing thousands of residents in the Jewelry District and downtown. I have Brown's Medical School. We have all 3 nursing schools. We have the Physician's Assistant Building. We have the Legaretta Cancer Center. We have thousands of people who live in buildings. They don't live in houses. All the retail is on the ground floor in those buildings. The same way that property owners respect rights of tenants and owners in these buildings, they don't allow smoking. So what we are saying is that this is a quality of life issue. It is also a public safety issue. When we spoke before the City Plan Commission, at the very least, we said that if ever one were going to consider this, and we are not suggesting that, the audacity of making this by right is totally unacceptable. At the very least, it would be a special use permit, at the very least. The same way that we as tenants in buildings have the right to say, we don't want to smell somebody else's cigarette smoke. We also don't want to smell literally and inhale the smoke from someone else on the street who is queued up in front of retail space on the ground floor. It should not be allowed in any retail spaces where residential use is above those retail spaces. In the first place, we got little to no notice. I knew what was happening when I received a telephone call from a reporter on a Thursday, when in fact this was before the CPC the following Tuesday. So therefore, no one had the ability to respond to any of this, when in fact it had been at work in the council way back to the beginning of April. So there has not been adequate notice. There has certainly not been adequate time for anyone to speak for or against this, in my opinion, relative to the amount of time we have to discuss the development that is happening in the Jewelry District. So we have the lion's share of all the new development, which is housing. Housing, which is the most important thing that is happening in Providence today. And the residents who live in those buildings have rights, and they have the ability and obviously the right to a quality of life. The same way that the people in that last row felt that their quality of life would be negatively impacted if in fact cannabis was going to be approved in a different agenda item. So I am here to say to you that in fact we would hope that the council would take a long, hard look at the decisions that you are making. There is a compassion center right now on Corliss Street next to the main post office that is certainly accessible to anybody who literally wants to avail themselves of that. So I would humbly ask the council, at the very least, to literally continue this at the very least. At the worst case scenario, under no circumstances should it be anything less than a special use permit. And I beg of you to think about the thousands and thousands and thousands of residents that will be negatively impacted, and all those buildings that are in the process of being built, including the brand new life sciences building in the jewelry district, the state lab, which is in the jewelry district, all the hospitals that have literally treatment centers in the jewelry district. I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Matthew Smith.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
And council. My name is Matthew Smith. I want to thank everybody for your consideration on this matter. I want to speak from personal experience working in the cannabis industry. I want to speak to my 6 years of experience of retail management and project development. Zoning is crucial, and it's a viable process to our success. While working in the innovation stages of the structure of Sweet Spot Farm specifically, which is a hybrid dispensary on the South County side of Rhode Island, I've also worked at the Thomas C. Slater Compassion Center on Corliss Ave as well. And I've realized that in my endeavor with Sweet Spot Farms that zoning had held us up for about 3 to 6 months, which had a very negative impact on our finances, our development, and our future market spaces. And just to speak on the city of Providence in general, I spent about 3 years working on Corliss Ave to the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that I have personally helped with this medicine. They may not be able to make these meetings. They may not know about these meetings, but if they did, I believe that they would have a voice. I want to speak for the worker co-op model specifically. I think this is something that Providence needs, specifically for the job structure that we have at hand. A lot of corporate businesses are able to have their way with the people of Providence, and I think putting the voice and the finances back in their hands gives them the advantage to give them the right to speak for themselves. As an individual working in the cannabis industry, I see that this is a big endeavor for Rhode Island specifically. As our friend said, that it hasn't been spotlighted anywhere in the country but in Rhode Island to come. So I ask for your consideration deeply on this matter. Again, my name is Matthew Smith, and if you have any questions, I'm here.
Any question for Mr. Smith? Councilman Royers?
Thank you for your testimony. In your experience of operating a cannabis retailer, are folks, in full transparency, I don't use cannabis, I have zero knowledge of, but are folks who are purchasing product from the retailers you've worked at, do you know folks using cannabis outside of the establishment after purchase?
So from my experience, it's universal. They can use it inside or outside. Some apartment units give special permissions to certain individuals that need it. I know that the accessibility on Corliss Street isn't always available to everybody. In my second endeavor, I worked at Sweet Spot Farms where we had a delivery service. And working in South County, I would do a lot of delivery specifically to Providence for individuals that couldn't get out of the house, people that are bedridden, people that are using it as a caregiver. So the accessibility is not always there. To the point of the usage, yeah, people would use it outside, people would use it inside. It's a universal medicine that I feel is used anywhere under the state law. At the facility specifically? So there is no open consumption on facility property specifically, but within 100 feet you can consume.
Okay, that's I was trying to get at that point. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
So would you say that the same laws that applied to regular cigarette smoking applies to this as well?
I would say so. So regular tobacco usage is equivalent to cannabis usage without city ordinance specifically.
Thank you.
No problem.
And I have Jennifer Lorelli.
My name is Jennifer Lorelli. I live on Pratt Street in Providence.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here. So I'm speaking against because I have an unanswered question and two unanswered questions. Relative to the Cannabis Control Commission's website, their process, a three-step process to qualify for a license. One of those steps lists that they must comply with local zoning rules and municipal approval. So my unanswered question is, will the approval process for Providence locations be open to the public as we do now for liquor licenses? If not, why not? And my other question is, the department requires dispensary license applicants to submit detailed business plans, financial plans, operational manuals, and security plans as well as part of their application. Will review of these plans be public? By whom in Providence or what city government department will be reviewing these? And if the process is not open to the public, why not?
Thank you for your questions. Mr. Aza, can you provide a response if you got these questions?
So my understanding is that unlike liquor licenses, which are regulated at the local level by the city's Board of Licenses, licenses for cannabis establishments are issued by a state commission. That's the Cannabis Control Commission, something like that. I'm not familiar with their processes. I would defer to the Cannabis Control Commission on that.
Well, relative to that, it says in their law that an applicant must comply with local zoning rules or a municipal approval. We are municipality, so I'm wondering, what is this? I don't want to give permission to what happens.
But what the process is happening right now, which is we're trying to establish the zoning for this to take place. Bob, you want to elaborate on that?
So the council does have the authority to create zoning rules around how these facilities are allowed to operate locally. The way this ordinance has been crafted, I just want to pull it up here. The way this ordinance has been crafted is that in the C2 zone, a cannabis retailer would require a special use permit. That would require going to the zoning board of review, and there would be a hearing, and there would be the opportunity for public comment. Likewise, for the hybrid cannabis retailer, cannabis cultivator in the C3 zone, that's an existing regulation. That's also by special use permit. For the other classifications and the other zones where retailers and cultivators would be allowed, those are allowed by right and not by special use permit. In those cases, there would be the issuance of a building permit or a change of use or whatever mechanism is necessary to allow the facility to exist. And that would be done by the Department of Inspection and Standards. And of course, they would have to verify that these facilities have been licensed by the state and that they comply with all state regulations.
On that note, I'm firmly opposed because that gives what happens in Providence on that particular issue gives us no control. So I am firmly opposed on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Andre Den.
Oh, sorry. Evening, everybody.
Hello.
So hi, my name is Dr. Andre Dev. I'm an activist and entrepreneur working to open a dispensary in Providence. So I've worked with Reclaim Rhode Island, PVD Flowers, in partnership with the International Union, UFCW, the RI, Cannabis Justice Commission, Coalition, and other stakeholders in the state with an interest in socially equitable cannabis. Right now I'm representing what we're calling the Rhode Island Cooperative Cannabis Project, which is an organization aiming to build on the stellar work of Rhode Island's legalization bill, specifically to support worker-owned cannabis businesses, which I believe will be the model for social equity in cannabis across the whole country moving forward. We support the proposed changes in the zoning requirements for cannabis businesses in Providence, but especially for applicants designated social equity or worker-owned co-ops. These zoning changes will help Providence compete with other cities in the state, as well as with Boston and New York, which, again, as others had said, already have dispensaries located in commercial zones. This also helps cannabis customers in Rhode Island who deserve to be able to access a dispensary without a car. And with respect to the gentle lady, it is not actually that easy to get to the Slater Center. Being able to access this from public transit, like we're Rhode Islanders, we don't like to drive. I think we can agree on that. It's an important thing for people to be able to get their medicine that way. And more than that, customers should be able to access their cannabis as part of a day of shopping and recreation. Worker-owned businesses also create a kind of accountability to the surrounding businesses because the people actually working at the dispensary are the ones who own it. This also helps the local community by creating good, wealth-creating, stable jobs. Cannabis is an industry with a 55% turnover rate, a notoriously high turnover rate. And it frequently negates any benefits from social equity because 55% of the workers are gone after a year. By letting the workers be owners, we can reduce that and keep the money from cannabis in the municipality. Easy to access cannabis also helps fight the illicit market, and evidence shows that, I studied public health at the Brown Medical School, like what the general lady was talking about here, and one of those public health concepts is we look at evidence. And areas with dispensaries have been shown to have fewer opioid hospitalizations and have stable or in some cases increased home values. Preferences for worker-owned businesses are especially important. The state bill did a great job creating opportunities for entrepreneurs who are affected by the war on drugs, who usually have less access to capital. And if we do nothing, it'll still end up benefiting wealthy interests despite all the work the state put in. In just the last month, multiple major publications have listed Providence as one of America's best cities to visit. My dream is that in a year or two, I'll be reading that same article, but with a paragraph that says, if you partake, don't miss out on visiting the country's first worker-owned cannabis dispensary, surrounded by charming shops and restaurants. Their staff of locals will help you find what you're looking for. For instance, if you're interested in something that doesn't produce a smell, and tell you what's going on in town. We have an opportunity to lead the country here, and we don't have to reinvent any wheels. We just have to work together with the state. Thank you so much, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Any questions? No, thank you. Emma Carnes.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Emma Carnes. I'm an organizer with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 328, located in Providence. I'm speaking today in support of this amendment. My organizing work has been centered around supporting the development of the worker-owned cooperatives and social equity dispensaries that folks have been speaking about. And I want you all to understand that starting one of these dispensaries is an extremely difficult and risky undertaking, and it's even more difficult and risky if you're coming from a poor community in our state, a community that was disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs. And one of the hardest parts of the process of getting a license is getting real estate. It's extremely expensive, and zoning is restrictive. We don't know yet what will be required on the application to the state in order to receive a license, but based on how this process has rolled out in other states, it's fair to assume that a business applicant will need to have site control when they apply to the commission at the state level for a license. Additionally, we know firsthand that most investors in the private market want to see site control and a business having access to compliant and attractive real estate before they put money into the business. So both of those things mean that lack of access to affordable real estate for undercapitalized entrepreneurs is a real bottleneck, a real challenge to entering this market. In Providence right now, with restrictive zoning, we're seeing a very limited stock of properties that are available to entrepreneurs trying to enter the cannabis market. And they're having to compete with very well-capitalized, out-of-state, multi-state operators who can afford to put down payments, take on leases, do so with an uncertain timeline and the risk of not getting licensed. And they're able to take up the properties and stash those in anticipation of applications opening. One of the things this amendment would do is significantly increase the stock of available properties and really meaningfully increase the chances that working class Rhode Islanders can put together a winning application and become business owners in this industry and generate wealth and keep it in their families and in this state. I also, just before I close, want to address some of the quality of life concerns that were brought up here this evening, and clarify that this amendment would not make any changes whatsoever to where you're legally allowed to consume or smoke cannabis. Providence has its own rules around that, and I won't speak, I don't know them exactly, but this doesn't change that. And in addition, I think there may be misconceptions around things like odor. All living in Rhode Island, we may have smelled the smell of cannabis driving past places like Slater, compassion centers. All of the dispensaries that are currently open, or at least some of them, including Slater, can grow their own product, which means that there's open plants growing. That's the odor that you're smelling, and in a dispensary, all flower, all product is processed, packaged, sealed, so there's much less concern about that on the retail side, which is what this amendment addresses. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Vargas,
Thank you very much.
you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you very much for your presentation. The question will be like, so according to the C2 is commercial use, is saying too that you can have an apartment on the second floor or on the third floor. According to the new ordinance that we're trying to put in, this cannabis can be there, right?
Yes, it would open up C2, which I'll have to defer to you if there's residential units in C2 zones, but yes.
So this odor like that we're talking about will bother the, what about we have like an infant, like a baby just born, that will be affecting this baby? Is any doctor here that we can have an explanation about this?
If I can just add, Councilman, I don't think it, and Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that there is any cannabis consumption allowed within the dispensary inside. Am I correct here?
I don't know that
Because
for sure.
there is no smoking allowed within the retail.
I'm not positive, but I think that's the case.
Yes, I think I can confidently say you're not allowed to smoke inside.
Wait, this is a retailer. It's not a smoke bar.
Correct.
Is that right?
In fact, no establishments in Rhode Island have social consumption licenses. So, in no business or dispensary in the state are you legally allowed to smoke cannabis.
Councilman Vargas, please.
Thank you much. But you just mentioned that Slater companions they cultivate, and the cannabis you said that they will open containers and put in little bags, and they will package. You also mentioned that will be less odor on these cannabis places, but this odor will bother the rest of the building, second, third, fourth floor. If we go along with C2, C3 zoning.
To clarify, the point I was making is the odor comes more from the plant than from the product, the processed sealed product, and the retailers that would be affected by this amendment are not cultivators, they're only retailers, they're only dealing with processed and packaged products.
Well, allow me to perhaps get an opinion from the city solicitor. It's in regards to, is there a smoking allowed within the retailer inside the store?
The same restrictions that apply to cigarettes apply to smoking marijuana in the state of Rhode Island, and as a result, we can't smoke indoors cigarettes or marijuana.
Thank you. So that clarifies things a little bit more. Councilor Peterson?
My question was answered.
No, okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess. Is that okay? Thank you. All right, we're back in session. Just a second. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, being that there is no one else that signed up to speak on this item, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing
So moved.
on item number 1.
Second?
Made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilor Varga. All in favor, aye. Oppose? The ayes have it. This public hearing is now closed. All right, so after hearing discussion from both sides and conversation, I share some of the concerns with this, and I also understand some of the proponents' expressions about this. It is a very crucial and it's a very important item that we are discussing. But it's also one that it's happening in the state has taken the lead on this, and now Providence is called on to do its part in keeping this moving forward. There were a couple of suggestions made, a couple of amendments that was suggested, and one is that we entertained the notion of making downtown by that area, that district, by special use permit. All right, so that is something that we feel that after listening to all the concerns that was expressed here, something that it's probably in line for us to consider. So after that conversation, I will entertain a motion to make the downtown area everyone. Our apologies from our committee, but we had a little back and forth, and here we're trying to do things right here. So after consultation here, we're proceeding to reopen the public hearing. So I'll entertain a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion is made by Councilor Vargas, second by Councilor Peters. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The public hearing is now reopened. Madam Clerk, I will also entertain a motion to continue this item to a certain date of July 29 at 5:30 p.m.
So moved.
Made by Councilor Vargas.
Second.
Second by Councilor Peterson. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 1 will be continued to July 29 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you. Madam Clerk, item number 2, please.
Item number 2 is an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled The City of Providence Zoning Ordinance approved November 24, 2014 as amended to add provisions to Section 1911 Certificate of Appropriateness.
And we have a sub-A. I'll entertain a motion to enter into the record.
So
Sub-A.
moved.
Made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilor Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. I'll also entertain a motion to enter into the record Exhibit 2A and Exhibit 2B.
So moved.
Second.
Made by Councilor Vargas, second by Councilor Peters. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, Mr. Azar, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is an ordinance amendment that relates to historic districts. As it was originally written, it would impose a 6-month delay on demolition within historic districts. There is, however, a substitution ordinance that changes these regulations in response to some concerns that were raised by planning staff and by the law department. The new ordinance speaks to demolition within historic districts, and it confines the review by the Historic District Commission to a time period that's consistent with state law. It also adds some rules around when the staff of the Historic District Commission accepts an application for demolition. There are certain requirements that have to be met before that application can be accepted. I have had conversations with the proponent, Councilman Gonzalez, and with the law department, and we are satisfied that this ordinance amendment comports with state law. As it was originally written, the City Plan Commission reviewed this, and there was some debate and dissent about the way it was originally written, so they didn't actually issue an opinion on this. However, again, based on the continued conversations with the councilman and with the law department, the planning department has no objection to the ordinance as it stands, the substituted ordinance.
Thank you. City Sergeant, do we have anybody that signed up to speak on item number 2? Thank you. All right, before we go to the general list, we'll hear from Councilman Goncalves, who represents the area.
Sure, I can yield my time to the constituents.
Thank you. So, will Justin Baptista? Helen Miller? All right, coming up. Good evening, Helen.
Good guess. Hello, Chairman and esteemed members.
Good evening.
And esteemed members of the council. I am proud to live in Providence. I'm also proud to be the lead organizer of the Partnership for Providence Parks, Recreation Centers, and Streetscapes, P3. And I'm here tonight, although I could have written a letter, but I'm here tonight to speak and use my voice about this ordinance because I can be. What P3 does all the time is gather people together in their neighborhoods to hear their voices. And so this ordinance is particularly important because it gives the community, residents of the community, the time to come together and to really understand the changes that are being debated within their own neighborhood. Residents deserve the opportunity for their neighborhoods to look, sound, and feel like what they want, and this ordinance would give them the opportunity to have that say and that time. Community engagement, as you all know, takes time. 6 months would give the people the time to consider these changes and to understand them and to come forward with an opinion about them and to have a voice. Thank you very much for your kind consideration.
Thank you. Any question from committee members? Hearing none. You have a question? Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Councilman Vargas, do you have a question for the sponsor?
Yes, I do have a question to the sponsor.
Yeah.
The question would be like, how the constituent will find out that the property is a historic property, or how old the property has to be to qualify for this type of ordinance that we trying to implement?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilman. So currently there are 8 historic districts in the city of Providence. Most of them are on the east side. When there is someone who is looking to, let's say, demolish a property within a historic district overlay, they have to go through the HDC process, and there's a robust process for that where I believe folks need to be notified. But the HDC process is pretty rigorous. There's a 45-day window currently that is in place before a certificate of appropriateness is issued. So we're extending that window so people have a little bit more time to think about alternatives to demolition. So things like adaptive reuse, ways to potentially keep the structure or the historic home from being demolished. And there have been several instances where I can give you a number of examples where, Brown University, for example, was going to demolish several homes, and they wanted to sell off those properties for $1 to a nonprofit partner that was willing to relocate those homes and those historic structures. But it just takes a lot of time to do that, because you have to think about, where the property would be relocated, if it's possible to move it to a different site, and there are lots of logistical concerns with that. So this essentially just gives more time to figure out alternatives to demolition. And it would only apply to historic properties that are currently in the historic district overlays, and there are only 8 in the city.
Can I?
Yes, Councilman Vargas, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Councilman. The other question is, so let's say I want to demolish my property. My first step will be the building inspection standards. I will go there and ask for a permit, and they will ask me if my property is a historian property, or how am I going to find out this property and trying to knock down this?
So Bob could probably speak to this, but if your property is within a historic district overlay, if you seek a demolition permit, that triggers the HDC process. So James Moore, the Director of Inspections and Standards, would then notify by statute that's required in the current ordinance the Historic District Commission. So the demolition permit couldn't be issued until the Historic District Commission undergoes their process. But Bob, if you want to elaborate more on that.
Yeah, so the councilman's right. The building permit system is actually set up so that if somebody applies for a demolition permit, the system is the zoning map is incorporated into the system so that it recognizes that a property is within a historic district. It automatically puts the application on hold and assigns a workflow to the planning department and more specifically to our preservation planner, who has to then will get a notification. Once he gets the notification, he can, through that permit system, tell the applicant that they have to come in and they have to file an application with him. That's for people who don't know that they're in a historic district. If they already know, they can come directly to the planning department, and the information about the historic district zoning is freely available online for people, so people can find out. And if they don't know, we're going to tell them.
Councilor Peterson.
Thank you. And this question is just a follow-up to the sponsor as well. I'm always appreciative of an opportunity for community engagement, and I just wanted to know, since you mentioned the 8 historic districts, I was wondering if you've done any engagement in those communities with this to be able to kind of garner more support.
Absolutely. So before you have a packet of over 300 petitioners citywide. That's literally across the city. So you've got members who live in the West Broadway neighborhood. You've got a letter of support from the West Broadway Neighborhood Association. You have South Elmwood, which is also a small overlay within the city of Providence. They provided a letter of support. You also have letters of support from the College Hill Historic District or the College Hill Neighborhood Association. The Providence Preservation Society is supporting this. So this has pretty widespread support across the entire city of Providence. I would say that, as you can see in your packet, again, over 300 people have written in support, and various neighborhood associations as well. If you look at the petition, you can see there are people from all across the city, the Jewelry District, people who live in College Hill, Federal Hill, Summit, downtown, Fox Point. Their addresses are listed, Federal Hill. And like I mentioned, these neighborhoods that have historic districts, such as the West Broadway Neighborhood Association, have submitted letters of support.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Councilor Peterson. Mr. Batista, you want to come up? Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, Council members. My name is Justin Baptista, and I strongly support the proposed ordinance to implement a 6-month demolition delay in historic districts. I've been a Providence resident for the past 31 years. I am not a homeowner. I am a renter. I thought it was important to point out the distinction because it's been the assumption that the people who usually support these kind of things are homeowners, those viewed by others as an elitist class too stubborn to step aside in the name of progress. That assumption is false. You don't have to be a homeowner to appreciate Providence historic character. You don't have to be a homeowner to be affected by the ruthless demolition of historic buildings and homes. You don't have to be a homeowner to notice the damage such demolition has on a community. Historic buildings and homes are more than the relics of the past. They are tied to the people of the present. Local businesses, tourists, even neighbors with only a personal connection. They all benefit from the building's existence in one way or another. It is for their sake that a 6-month demolition delay is absolutely necessary. I am not naive. Historic structures cannot be maintained forever, but they deserve a fighting chance due to all the connections and importance they possess. The time frame currently applied to a demolition delay only provides half of that chance. The city is changing, and as it changes, more public input is crucial. A 6-month demolition delay gives the public more of a voice in the process, as they should, this being more of a neighborhood matter than a property owner's concern. Alternative options would be explored to their full extent. If no feasible option is to be found, it gives the property owner and the community time to prepare for their pending loss. And that's exactly what it would be, a loss. As such, should be treated with the proper amount of respect and patience. The future is in no hurry to get here. I urge you to vote in favor of this ordinance because most of all, it represents what Providence needs going forward. A balance of the past and the future. Too much of either can break a city. To maintain the balance, what we need more than anything is compassion for our neighborhoods, for our history, for our culture. Progress without compassion is no progress at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question for Mr. Batista? Hearing none, thank you so much. Okay, being that no one else signed out to speak, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilman Vargas, second by Councilor Peterson. All in favor, aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. This public hearing is now closed. And after hearing all testimony and being that CPC has no objection, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilman Vargas. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Item number 2 is approved. Madam Clerk, being that there is no other further business on the calendar, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilor Vargas, second by Councilwoman Peterson. All in favor, aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.